let's kick it off. For those of you who don't know, my name is David. I am on the community team at Relite Finance. I'm super excited to be here today with George, Jessie, and Alvaro from both Relite and Nsure for the Relite and Nsure Network AMA. We are joined by George Groshkov, the wonderful and amazing founder of Relite Finance, alongside the incredible Jessie Wang, who is the head of insurance model design and communication over at Nsure Network, and the just as wonderful Alvaro Fernández, who is the head of strategy at Nsure Network. Guys, for those of you who don't know, do you want to go ahead and give an intro about who you are, what you're all about, and what the product's about?
Let's start with the guests on our Discord. Why don't you go ahead, George?
So I'm George. I'm CEO for Relite Finance. Essentially, we are a cross-chain lending protocol. What does it mean? It means that people that hold assets in different chains, either it's going to be Polkadot, Ethereum, then in the future they can lend and borrow in one interface. The interoperability aspect is done through bridges through Polkadot, and the real aim for either three basic aims in Relite. So first of all, we want to tackle a great usability, because there's a big problem in the DeFi space of how people actually understand DeFi space and where to make the first click. The second part is the security aspect. So like we're going to tackle today with Nsure about how they insure their capital, how much fees they pay, can they actually afford the collateral, how this collateral is calculated. And then the third big aim in Relite is really to fix the lack of interoperability, meaning the connection between the assets, because they're still sitting in a very defragmented space. So very excited to be here. Myself a bit, I've been in crypto since 2013, actively from 2016, 17. Relite started in October 2020, where me and my founders, we decided that there's a need to really redefine the lending space. And then we conducted an investment round, an IDO, and now we're just fully focused on building the product and great, amazing partnerships. This call is actually also about our partnership as well, and the fact that we always look for ways to protect assets in multiple verticals for our users, and insurance is very, very, very important for the stability. Then I can expand a bit more how we can utilize that through the reserve fund and so forth. But yeah, that's like a short info from my side.
Yeah, so from our side, Nsure Network, so it's been close to 1 year journey for us so far. And in a nutshell, basically, Nsure Network, we're building a distributed marketplace for all kinds of different risks. First step that we've been focusing on is on smart contract exposure and exploitabilities. So any kind of risks that you may have seen in the past from previous exploits on different protocols. And one of the key differentiations that you can see from our side versus other insurance protocols, and our motivation and drive to eventually build what we have built today, is that there's such a vast market for insurance, and there's so many different risks that are currently in the crypto and blockchain landscape. And if we understand the dynamics of what's actually going on versus traditional versus custodial environments, is that it's absolutely not the same in terms of what exposures the users may have. So we've been focusing quite a lot on first educating on the user side on the risks, but also on providing the different risk protections in the way that we have created a more sophisticated protocol versus what we have seen, because in terms of insurance, it's quite early in the space as for now. So to give some of the data point references, if we look at TVL metrics, it's close to 1% of the TVL that as of today can be insured across different chains. So the way that we have built it is not in the form of a mutual where all the participants and all the users would be sharing their risks. But sophistication, what I mean by that is that if you're familiar with Lloyd's of London, it's a marketplace where the user can eventually choose and select which kind of participation is having. So whether it's acquiring insurance or underwriting a specific insurance that he would be comfortable with, or eventually becoming a capital provider, like our friends from Lloyd's of London came up with a couple of 100 years ago properly. We have adapted this basically into a decentralized environment. So some of the key differentiations or the key metrics, key points that you can eventually identify is that from our marketplace, supply and demand is one of the very important factors, which is going to determine not only the pricing, but also the capacities that eventually can be also provided. We have a risk factor, which is quite influential on the capacities. And eventually, we're looking also towards moving forward beyond not only smart contract risk exposure, but all kinds of different risks. And one of these points we're going to be touching actually at a later stage on this AMA. From my side, I've been in crypto since 2017 full time. My background is on venture capital side. Last engagement previous to Nsure network was with venture capital firm JRR Group in Shanghai, which, excuse me, Rish, if you mind. Exactly. Perfect.
Oh, good.
All right. So previous engagements was basically as managing director for European markets for JRR Group. And since July 2020, I've been joining Nsure as head of strategy. And it's been involving multiple kinds of tasks. So from the different strategies from a community side approach towards the product as well, towards new potential product verticals, to eventually all kinds of different situations and environments. So yeah, great to be here. And I would like to also give some time for Jessie Wang, our colleague, and maybe she can probably introduce herself better.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Jessie. I'm very glad to be here. So, Alvaro already introduced quite well about Nsure. So I came from a traditional insurance background. So I was studying actuarial science in university. So after graduation, I joined Aon, the biggest insurance broker company in the world. And after Aon, I joined Allianz. So there, I noticed that there are so many different risks in the real world that waiting to be insured, but lack of a quite flexible solution for them. So that's why I got so amazed by the idea of Nsure borrowing the very good. So I think it's quite amazing place in traditional insurance market, which is the Lloyd's. It's a free market to provide solutions for those novel and new complex risks. And Nsure was built based on this idea. So I was totally amazed by this concept. So after like 7 years in traditional insurance industry, I decided to join Nsure. So now I'm in charge of insurance model design and communication.
Awesome, guys. It's some incredible experience there. And I think it's really important and it's really wonderful to hear that you guys have backgrounds that stemmed beyond crypto, because if we're aiming for this on-chain future, which I absolutely believe that we are, and I think we're all in agreement on that, especially when it comes to things like insurance, it's essential that you have knowledge of how the quote-unquote real world works. And then you adapt them, as you mentioned, Alvaro, to the novel solutions that we see today. So that's really incredible. I guess now's the time to move on to some community questions. We've got quite a few to work through. The first of which is aimed towards George, but feel free to chime in, guys, whenever you want on any of the questions. And it's a pretty simple one. How does this partnership between Relite and Nsure help better the crypto space?
Thank you for this question. Well, in reality, as I started at the beginning, we looked with different ways to actually engage with insurance partners because of the risks that are involved when you lend actually assets. The crypto space, as also Alvaro mentioned, has a lack of let's say security, because there's just not enough products out there that you can actually make an insurance or like put an aside for insurance on the actual native asset or non-native asset. So in reality, you have the idea here is that users of Relite now on every position, they can also basically insure part of it. And also parts of the tokens could also be insured by Nsure protocol. At the same time, these entities could be then traded on the Nsure marketplaces, so providing additional security to the Relite ecosystem. And I think in general, when you have like this kind of verticals and when you have that, actually create already a much safer environment for people, because again, the sharp declines in crypto happen also because people over leveraged, or they don't know how much can they actually lend, and they're not secured about on these positions. And when they're liquidated, we have seen so much nasty cascade events. This is where also really important insurance come into play and how we can kind of leverage those risks. So first of all, leveraging risk, bringing value to the community, and then in the same time, offering different, let's say, cross products between Relite and Nsure. That's the end game here. I think it's very, very vital for the crypto community in general.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with George. Actually, also one of the very specific overlaps that I felt that we had between Relite and Nsure is the natural character or focus that we have, not only on one specific chain, but also looking towards providing the product and services that we're looking to provide across different landscapes, across different layers and blockchains. So having this overlap, it's just such a synergy that allows us to work together on providing this security to the users wherever they're operating, which is just marvelous to see, basically.
Yeah, that's wonderful, guys. I mean, I think we're definitely heading towards a cross-chain future. And George, like you mentioned earlier, Relite will be leveraging Polkadot's parachains and the Relay chain to essentially live this vision. And what did Gavin Wood mention, right? Like Polkadot is your best bet against chain maximalism, because that's the direction we're headed. So it's awesome to hear that both Nsure Network and Relite are embodying this as well. Moving on to the next question. This one is directed at Nsure, but again, feel free to shout out anytime. DeFi is not safe, especially for the people who have recently gotten into the cryptocurrency industry. How does or how will Nsure Network make it safer? Is experiencing DeFi risk-free really possible?
Okay, thank you. Maybe I'll take this one. So as you just mentioned, DeFi is not safe. I totally agree on this. The biggest threat, I think, if you know about the recent hacks that are happening in DeFi world, is that the biggest threat is the smart contract risk. Those hacks, because of the bugs in the smart contract, which leads to it running not as it is supposed to be, right? Caused a lot of monetary damage to every users. So according to the Snowmist hacker database, it's actually the loss is close to, it's already exceeds 21 billion USD. So it's a very large amount. So we believe that the number will only go up faster as time goes by. So how could Nsure help on this issue is that we directly provide insurance coverage to users. So it's very natural, right? Once you face a risk, you will turn to insurance for help. So our coverage is not only for those big names, say Compound, RV, those projects is already well known and people regard is actually quite safe. But we just launched a new marketplace like a week ago for new and innovative projects where coverage is really in need. So those projects, they have huge demand because people don't understand fully and deeply about the contract behind. So they're eager to find the insurance protections on those smart contract risks. So our aim is to provide the flexibility to users to propose a product that really can solve their problem while maintaining the safety to our capital providers. Yeah. also mention about the risk-free DeFi environment, right? So for me, I think it's still too early to say that it could be a risk-free DeFi world because there are so many risks. Apart from the smart contract risk that I just mentioned, there's also like precise calculation mistakes or the hack on the oracle manipulation and also the economic model floor and so on and so forth. So there are too many risks. And another issue is that I don't think most of the users really understand what's underlying there. So it makes it more difficult for people to protect themselves and make this risk-free DeFi world. But I noticed a trend that the project team themselves, they are more eager to help their users to find insurance solutions. So it's a good trend, and it makes insurance even more important to the DeFi world. Now the protection is way from enough. Like Alvaro just said, it's less than 1%. But I believe in the future, this number would grow. And so I want to say it's possible that we really can achieve this risk-free DeFi world. But we're definitely on the way to heading to that direction.
It's quite an important thing about in general, like smart contract protection, because I think the space is moving from testing prod, as Andre Conj mentioned, to actually really be careful what you launch on mainnet, test it very thoroughly, and then ensure it. And that's quite important because vulnerabilities, they will be always there. This is part of the releases, the cycle of development, so there will be always some issues. But how they actually handled afterwards is the biggest question, and there's a lot of opportunity there in that sense. Yeah, I agree. People don't get that smart contract exploit could be very dangerous. We saw like what happened to Polychain Capital as well. Another interoperability, by the way, project. So these things have to be very, very true. But of course, I do believe it's impossible to cover everything and to ensure everything, right? But at least this part is very crucial.
Just to jump in, it's just great points that have been added. But one of the key differentiations that I was briefly introducing earlier is that the infrastructure can be provided and DeFi can be made risk-free. The thing is that it's really up to the ultimate end user to take the choice of making this move as well. So let's say if I'm engaging on protocol XYZ, do I want to acquire this insurance? And going beyond this, one aspect that we've trying to put a lot of efforts on it, on the educational aspect, because I don't know if you guys remember or are familiar with a situation where this false sense of security was being given in many circumstances. And it's not even fault from the different protocols, not even from our side if we were to be exploited, not even from Relite if it were to be exploited. God doesn't like, let's avoid it, hopefully. But understanding that audits, for example, has been taken as an overly indicator for safety is just not enough. And this education is something that needs to be widespread for the users to eventually not being able to only understand, but also to take action with the tools that are available today and tomorrow for eventually taking this risk mitigation processes. And that's basically one of our targets that we're working for as well. Hence why we're today on this partnership.
Yeah, incredible. Alvaro, actually, just to pick up on something you mentioned there, this notion that people see that there's an audit for a particular smart contract, and then they're like, okay, well, this must be safe. That's something which I think really needs to change in the crypto sphere, because people are under the impression that because it's got an audit from whatever auditing firm, it's now bulletproof.
Exactly, and it needs mechanisms within every protocols that actually are there, right? And for instance, in Relite, we have the mechanism of the reserve fund. The reserve fund basically, essentially, it's a pool that could serve. You can call it as a insurance pool, but as soon as the liquidations happen, and if they're fast, then we can still mitigate some of the percentage we couldn't actually liquidate fastly enough or effectively enough to the users themselves. And in the same time, the reserve fund is also a pool where people can stake really and give the vote of confidence to the protocol and earn part of the revenue that is generated in Relite. So that's like a very big thing, and if it really is about like really not putting the mechanisms right in place, putting the insurance and in that mechanism, and then this is like the ultimate security, right, for the users. We need to kind of strive for that. I think I'm happy that we're on the same line here.
It's actually great to hear that you're having an insurance fund, because this is one of the mechanics that, especially for on-chain money markets and lending protocols, is something that is going to be of great help. So the way I see it is that there's a lot of ways that you can have risk mitigation mechanics, such as the insurance fund, for example. Ultimately, regardless, at least from my point of view, the only way that you can enjoy this risk-free environment or completely mitigate the risks is by outsourcing them. So you can have the different tools, but ultimately for avoiding these risks, the way I perceive it is with insurance products. And actually, just to pinpoint on one of the previous topics that we were having on this specific question discussion, I think a great example of what we were saying about things looking safe or being safe until they're not is flash loan attacks. Because we cannot disregard or forget that this industry is just such a fast-moving pace, okay? And innovation is constantly kicking in, constantly eventually. And things can eventually be safe or look safe until they're not, because as we were seeing with flash loan attacks, different protocols and AMMs, especially smaller ones that could be manipulated on the Oracle side, they were not having this risk until this tool came out. So having such a tool, such protection on an insurance policy is one of the best and easiest way for the user to eventually outsource. Yeah.
Perfect. And another question from the community on this topic actually is, will the insurance from Nsure work to protect the user from liquidations on lending?
That's a great question. And our target from Nsure side is not to provide only the smart contract insurance. Same as I was saying, that the industry is a constant development phase. We want to be in this modus operandi as well, basically. So step one from our side has been deploying mainnet with the basic smart contract insurance provisions that we have live today, and that we're going to start providing for Relite in the future. But looking towards catering for customizable products, such as eventually working together on drafting a potential product that would allow for any kind of protection towards liquidation risks or any kind of mitigation or counter effect towards these risks that the users are having, is something that from our side we are very interested in looking at, and we would really like to provide as well. And I believe we're on the same page for both from Relite and Nsure. We're actually going to be working together on providing this.
Yes, absolutely.
George, this one is directed towards yourself and towards Relite. I'm sure as many of the listeners know, Relite plans to enable NFTs as loan collateral, essentially. Will Relite accept collateral from different projects or different types of NFTs, or is it only from the NFTs that Relite itself has issued, and how will you mitigate the risk which might arise from that?
Well, of course, this is it's actually a topic on its own for another AMA. But the NFT format, the token, is very interesting, not only because it's a great way to mitigate art, but also it's also a very interesting way to store its value and add additional smart contracts to it. The first important things we need to figure out at Relite, and we're still researching on, is the price, right? How is the price determination of these NFTs? Open market data versus history data. What is the demand for it? And for the beginning, we will use will be the Relite NFTs that could be then collateralized. Then the other aspect of it is actually when people come and let's say collateralize those NFTs, will there be any market for them afterwards, such as other tokens like other cryptocurrencies, right? And these are also the parts of the risks that we need to mitigate, so that we need to have a guarantee, for instance, for some NFTs that could be liquidated at a particular price, and they will be able to be liquidated also. But in sense, at Relite, we believe that it should be a freedom of those assets, and all kinds of assets should be available, not only NFTs, other tokens too, be used as collateral in Relite. Like in the real world, you can collateralize your house, you can do a mortgage, you can collateralize your car, you can go with art piece to a bank, maybe an art dealer. So all those kind of things have to happen also on the blockchain too. I think that's the future as well for those kind of multiple asset collateralization, which we want to do at Relite. So yes, NFTs is a big, but there's also a lot of homework to be done as well in this side.
Definitely, because it's all innovation, right? Like I don't know of any other protocols which allow this, so it's going to be a learning curve for the whole industry, I think. Again, another one for George. So what is the goal for the partnership that you have set out with Nsure Network and Nsure Network guys? Feel free to jump in. And how will Nsure members as well as current Relite holders benefit from the partnership?
Sure, of course. Like we discussed, the first aim is to be on the insurance on the smart contracts, and then the second part will be, of course, when the lending kicks in really. And on this side, of course, and on lending, Relite users could benefit a lot. So there are multiple actually verticals that we can explore, but these are the main two that we look for.
Exactly. Just to step in here to remark some of the benefits from Nsure protocol side. So if you look at the marketplace and the nature of how it's being set up, one of the key points is risk diversification as well. So underwriters, which are the profiles, which are the risk takers in our platform, would benefit from having an additional variety on different protocols they can select for underwriting. Our protocol is based in a form that there is a certain amount of leverage that can be taken from an underwriting perspective, and having this additional diversification would allow the users to utilize their Nsure tokens for underwriting on an even more diverse way, basically. One of the additional points that is actually quite beneficial for the marketplace itself, not to speak about the elephant in the room, which is the insurance policy itself, of course.
Perfect, cool. We've got a couple of questions which are directed to both teams here. And again, it really boils down to security, as we've been speaking about. Do you plan to have security audits from third-party auditors, and if so, how many?
Yes, a lot of them actually. First one is done with Certic. More to go actually. We're working with 2 more security partners, and one is actually onboarded already to become like a full-time security partner for Relite. That includes all during the development process, how we write tests, how we conclude them, planning, security planning, checklists, all those kind of things that needs to be done and sign off by every team member, by the security team. So yeah, audits, very important parts, but keep in mind that security is all the time. So it's not like a static thing that you have like an audit and then the stamp is done that everything's okay. That is an ongoing process that happens into the development cycle, and that's why we have those partners that will be together with us on every release, every new feature, and on every new smart contracts, and we will test in testnet, not in production, right, to actually achieve the level of security we need.
Exactly, and as a potential protocol that's going to be on board on the Nsure marketplace, I can only recommend to have these kind of security audits. Because I was mentioning earlier, it's, or as you just mentioned again, George, it's not a seal of approval that everything is going to go right, but just to reinforce the functionalities of how our main marketplace works, for example, these security audits are one of the references that are being taken for providing the security ratings that we look at. So Jessie is very familiar with the manner, but if we look at the potential evaluation of security risks, it's very different from traditional. So it's not that the sample size is massive. Let me put the most simple example of like red car accidents. It's very different. It's actually a case-by-case basis. And having things and points such as security audits really allow us for evaluating, at least in a more precise way, on the audit side. And it's great to have. From our side, when we were launching, we were actually focusing a lot on, an insurance protocol to be exploited is potentially the biggest hypothesis that you can have. So we actually took quite a bit of time to launch as well, and to make sure that from a security perspective, we were on the right track. Multiple audits in the background. I see that the overlap that we have is CERTIC as well. And
There's actually another very good element here that you mentioned, that since you have also the stamp of approval, but I think there's also a stamp of approval by the community itself as well. And that's why we're launching like separate bug bounty programs of actually finding vulnerabilities all the time for Relite. And actually people think these bug bounty systems are a great way to actually, first of all, hire new people and find great talented people around there. Second, really see if there's a real vulnerability happening, and maybe you mitigate the risk of actually those people doing the hack and then claiming something from you, or actually showcasing the vulnerability, and you actually solve it with a bug bounty. So this kind of stuff is very, very important. It's a complex and ongoing, all the time dynamic between also other projects, because I like as well Nsure vision that we need to always evolve, and while evolving, we need to also check our partners as well. Are they good enough? Are they actually the ones? Are they completing like the healthy hygiene checks, or just like the basic stuff of how they handle the communication in the community, how transparent they are, how the smart contracts are transparent. And these are the things actually we can also check already on a very basic security level. And then we have the real trust that we need and to move on.
Community is actually a great tool as well. Developer community, white hat hacker community is actually something that we look ourselves as well from a risk evaluation perspective. And it's proven plenty of times to be very effective for a whole variety of different protocols. So from a risk expert perspective, suggesting to have bug bounties is not even a suggestion. I would almost tend to say it's a must at this stage in the development.
I'm happy to know that the users are throwing questions on auditing, because before we launch, bring a project into Nsure platform, actually the first thing that we look at is its auditing report. I want to add one perspective to this question. It's not just about whether it's been audited or not. It's also about what's the auditing results. And in Nsure, we try to extract the key information out from those reports by giving it a clear indicator, because actually there are multiple perspectives, a lot of information that is provided by this report, but maybe people just care about whether it's okay, it's audited, okay, it's safe, but we cannot say that all the report is the same. So in Nsure, we have this security rating process to help people understand what is the result, and we will give a clear indicator to different projects to identify how much risk it contains in its smart contract by looking at its auditing report. So just to notify, one thing is that I'm happy that people see the importance of auditing, and both us and Relite, of course, focus a lot on this. And for all the users, they need to check the auditing status and also the auditing report. It would help the entire DeFi business grow much healthier.
Absolutely. And I guess this is sort of a sub question to that last one. And it's particularly relevant because you guys are building pretty novel solutions, like things that we haven't seen before. Is your protocol built in a fundamentally secure way? And I think what the user means by this, you're using sort of tried and tested contracts, or are you experimenting with new sort of financial primitives, new ways of executing your vision?
In regards to security, the devils are in the details, right? You can start from how developers set up their CI/CD environment, right? Where exactly do they deploy the contracts? What kind of test nets are you using? Then how much test cases they actually writing in the code? Are they actually covering all the test cases? Do you have enough quality assurance guy? Is it actually enough educated to do the job? Do you have enough experience in the Web3 development cycles, right? This is also like a tricky questions for a lot of. Then how do you deploy it? Is it the deployment process setting correct? And where are the issues there in the deployment? What happens when things happen? Do you have a process of actually doing something, even if it's on production? Like, are the smart contracts upgraded? So those kind of questions, if you have them, like if you ask the right questions, you start understanding that if you manage to have at least if you have the answers for them, then you have actually already a system, a process where you have a security in place. Before that, going into the details in every step, every brackets, and then you have like this really tiny checklist. Until that, then it's just like an enigma. It's just like, you can say it's like super secure. But how do you actually make it secure is the key here, right? And we in Relite, and I do believe in Nsure, we're very pedantic in that sense. Smart contracts, of course, are written on the latest solidity. They've been audited, they've been checked. We write tests, we have QAs. We do, again, we have good DevOps, and all those kind of things are very, very needed to get things done.
Yeah, George mentioned a lot of points actually in there. Most of the basics that I completely agree with. To go deeper into the security layer and the financial primitives on the question, one of the considerations that we were taking in mind when building Nsure is that it's built in a way that it's a framework that can be utilized for eventual different environments, for different products. You look at the nature of how the protocol is built in terms of the dynamic pricing of the capacities and the securities and the risk exposures themselves, is already allowing us in the future to potentially build beyond what smart contract exploitability is, or liquidations potentially on a marketplace, or even looking outside of what the native blockchain environment is and look at something like natural catastrophes or different potential environments that could be insured in a decentralized way, in a distributed way. And just to remark the last point that was briefly mentioned before, security is something that is not just stamped and you move forward. Is something that on the one hand side needs to be iterated if there's any kind of developments that was being mentioned earlier. It's just that keeping up with the industry is something that is not a choice, but it's a must, I believe, as a protocol. And as you eventually iterate and deploy on the different environments, you need to adapt and you need to keep your eyes open on what's happening around the industry eventually as well.
Great stuff. Awesome. This one is to Nsure. Can you guys explain things in a simple way? So I think what the user really means here is, can you give sort of a top tier overview of how everything works? They mentioned they're not quite grasping what proof of loss principle is, policy mining, what it is, how it works, and the policy pricing formula. So feel free to give a general overview. That would be awesome.
Okay, thanks for this question. I think he really knows something about our project because he asked a lot of those details. I can talk about this for an hour, but I will try to make it short because he asked for a simple explanation. So I will go through this one. He mentioned about a proof of loss, error core, and policy mining, and what is the last one? Pricing?
It was the policy pricing formula.
Pricing. Okay. So I will go one by one. So proof of loss is that we need the policyholders to be responsible to provide an adequate evidence that they really suffered this loss. So because blockchain is very transparent, he can extract those informations quite clearly to prove that he really suffered a genuine loss in his case. So it includes two perspectives. One is that he needs to prove that he is the owner of this affected account. So he can either sign it by providing a signature, or he can make a zero amount payment to a specific address to prove that he's the owner. And the next thing is that he needs to give more details of this loss, like how big it is, how it happened. So for example, what kind of evidence is that would be like a snapshot of this address balance at blocks before and after the hack, or a description, maybe a Medium post by the project team to explain how this hack happens, and also the transaction of him selling this damaged assets. As long as he proves these things, and of course, the more details he can provide, the easier and more clear for our risk assessors to assess his claim filing. So this is why we need this proof of loss. This is very essential in insurance industry, because all these claim settlements is based on this loss is genuine. Otherwise, our pricing won't take effect as it's supposed to be. The second thing is the policy mining. This one is actually quite straightforward. Is that other than we provide like token incentive to those providing the capital in Nsure, we also give policyholders this mining reward. After he purchased the policy from Nsure, it's an automatic process that he's included in this mining. So he will receive not only the coverage itself, but also the mining rewards for his policy. It's like completely automatic. It's included in our contract. This is one additional benefit that we want to incentive people to really care about the risk that they're facing. The last one is the pricing. This one is more complex. But to make it short, I will just tell the idea of this model, pricing model. So we designed this dynamic pricing model to reflect both the supply side and the demand side. So for insurance, the demand side is the purchase. So how many people buy this insurance is the direct demand. And the supply side comes from the like our underwriter. How many underwriters think it's worthwhile to stake their own Nsure token to support this product? So this time, the pricing is actually reflected by this beta distributions 95%, but I won't go into detail about it. The key idea is that when we design this pricing formula, we try to embed those two perspectives in the market into it. So it's very sensitive to both sides, which makes sense to us. And we want to make that like into this formula because we believe that both sides should impact this pricing. Otherwise, the pricing would be either too low to incentive those demand side, or either too high to just stop people from buying it. So this is how we design our dynamic pricing model.
Awesome, Jessie, appreciate it. And that about wraps it up in terms of community questions, guys. If you guys have anything else you want to answer, you want to add, feel free to do it. Otherwise, we can say our goodbyes and close things up.
Yeah, it's really great that we are entering a stage where we can really take the financial products and really put it on the blockchain. Kind of take professionalism in and know how to track. That's very, very cool. And the fact that we can also navigate how many are the loss, or the loss occurred. And
definitely, like having the chance of putting financial products on the blockchain. I mean, I believe many underestimate what's actually occurring at this stage in the industry. And even though, at least from my perspective, it's very early stages, the potential is there. And the responsibilities that come with it are actually fairly high. So it's quite important to eventually be working together on trying to make these first steps in a potentially very long journey as precise and as secure as possible.
Absolutely. So I'm happy to wrap it up, guys. Is there anything else you'd like to add, or should we shill our websites, tell people where to go, and then we'll call it a day? It's been a great AMA.
Yeah, so from our side, you can find us and our product at ensure.network. Everything is pretty much over there. Educational materials you will find there, docs.ensure.network. Application is directly on app.ensure.network, but people can really navigate from our website directly. And any questions, any doubts, any comments can eventually be shared on our Discord, on our Telegram channels. And you can also find us on Twitter, Telegram, etc. So everything is set on ensure.network. And soon there will be a very interesting product coming up, which is offering insurance policies for Relite. Really excited for that.
Awesome. Perfect. Amazing. I guess I will do the one for Relite since George has unfortunately dropped off, but you can find us on Twitter at Relite Finance. You can find out everything about the product, read the white paper, measure the tokenomics, do anything you like on relite.finance. We have just entered our beta phase, so the first step of our roadmap. So it's really, really exciting at the moment. And now is an incredible time to get involved. All the links are there for all our communities. We're super excited for the next 6 months and indeed the next 6 years. So it's going to be an amazing time. Huge thank you to Nsure Network for hosting us today. You guys have been brilliant. You've answered all the questions. You've been amazing. And hopefully we'll get to do it again soon.
Would have been possible without a great host such as you, David. Thank you so much for being here and hosting.
Thank you, David.
Thanks. I just wanted to say that I'm very excited about the Relite and Nsure partnership. I think we're really creating a very secure lending space.
Likewise,
really thank you guys.
It's great to see you interested actually in providing these kind of multiple security layers, even in advance, because it's, for good or for bad, at least not every protocol that is caring that much about their protocol and their users. So excited to make it happen.
Cheers. Thank you, David.
Have a great day, guys.
Awesome.
Have a great one.